Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So, we're coming back to Mathmech, and one of the main reasons I wanted to come back to Mathmech, of course, aside from the fact that I simply wanted to cover it for the deck profile for the season, is because I have been just pouring into the untapped meta stats lately, and from what I can tell, across pretty much every rank, it seems like Mathmech has the highest win rate of any deck played on Ranked Ladder, again, according to the untapped companion stats, which, sampling from, hundreds of thousands of games, it definitely provides a lot of fairly accurate data in that regard. And that was... It's a little surprising and not to see Mathmech so high, up there as far as like the actual win rate goes. And if we're defining how good a deck is on Ranked Ladder by win rate, which, I don't know, to me seems like, a pretty good metric, this would make Mathmech the best Ranked Ladder deck statistically right now. By the way, if you're at all interested in checking out the Untapped GG companion, having that deck tracker available for Hearthstone, as well as contributing your stats and a myriad of other features, definitely go ahead and check out the description below. I've got an affiliate link there. It's a free download, and it definitely helps the channel, so it's much appreciated. But in either case, if you go to the website there and just look at the decks, they're all sorted by win rate. And if you're able to see the win rate there, you'll see that it's Mathmech. It's far and away Mathmech, again, across pretty much every single rank that just has the highest win rate. So, I think the reason that Mathmech has an even, actually, noticeably higher win rate than Super Heavy Samurai, and Branded is because... well, mainly Super Heavy Samurai, right? I'm mainly comparing it to that deck in particular because the two decks actually play fairly similarly. Of course, they have very different inboards and styles of like extract summoning and stuff that they do, but in terms of being one-card combo decks that can also afford to play a lot of various disruption, they are very, very similar in that regard. But I think Mathmech is just overall the more consistent between the two. Not just in terms of how many starters it has. In fact, it's not the more consistent in that regard. Super Heavy Samurai is the more consistent. But when I talk about consistency, I'm not just talking about like the ability to open the right cards, to open enough gas, as well as disruption, so on and so forth. But also how well your deck can consistently perform over the course of a duel, not just over the course of, like, many duels, right? And within one duel, I mean, like, Super Heavy Samurai, for example, has very, very explosive turn ones. If they go first, obviously they combo out. Even if they go second, the turn one, even if they're going second, is often still explosive for them in terms of the amount of disruption. However, beyond turn one, Super Heavy Samurai can pretty easily struggle against like almost any amount of an established board, it feels like sometimes, right? Whereas Mathmech has the ability to play through hand traps, I think, better than Super Heavy Samurai does. There's also, of course, the factor that, and I talked about this a little bit before, right? That, when you've got a significant group of people who are bouncing from meta deck to meta deck, playing whatever they perceive to be the best deck, which there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's like, duh, if you want to ladder quickly, you should take whatever you think is going to be the best deck. So when a lot of people jump over to something like Super Heavy Samurai, and this sounds really counterintuitive, but it actually ends up bringing down the overall win rate of that deck, of a deck like Super Heavy Samurai, because a lot of the people who have jumped over to it are not quite as experienced with it. So, whereas the people who have stuck with Mathmech and are still playing it as their main deck right now are definitely more skilled, or at the very least experienced pilots, right? It's funny, too, because when you sort not just by the tier list, but if you're able to go on Untapped and sort like by the decks with the most amount of games that have the highest win rate, you'll actually still see Mathmech on top. Like, I was searching within Master Rank in particular, I remember, and I saw a Mathmech deck that played 300 duels within Master over the last season, and it had a 66% win rate. That's ridiculously high, by the way. Like, 66% might not sound impressive, but when you think about the fact that The average win rate for like a tiered deck is about 55%. That's why 66% is wild. That's insanely good. And really, winning 2 out of every 3 duels on ranked ladder, if you actually stop and think about it, that's a lot. That's a lot. But anyway, let's talk about Mathmech. Let's actually talk about the list here. I really haven't changed too much from our last build. I think one of the more notable things that I've gone down on Firewall Defenser, I'm only playing 2 copies instead of 3 like I usually do. Normally, I do like to maximize on my 1-card starters, and, you know, for that reason, it is definitely good to play 3 Firewall Defenser. But I will say that it's not just necessary, because I was going to say it's the grind game, right? You don't want to draw Firewall Defenser later in the duel, especially if you've already used a copy. But there's also the fact that, like, opening Defensor with other combo starters is also pretty awkward, right? Like, if you open Firewall Defenser plus Mathmech Circular, you know, and you're going first, in my opinion, you always start with Mathmech Circular because it doesn't commit your normal summon, and it will allow you to be more flexible in that regard. But then here's the problem, right? If your opponent doesn't stop the Circular line, or even in a lot of cases where they do, you'll still want to use your normal summon for Diameter. So a lot of the time where you open Defensor turn 1, you don't really end up even using it as your combo line, right? Because between Defensor and Circular, for, again, virtue of not having to use your normal summon, is, like, pretty much the better option, right? So even if I open, like, Defensor plus Veiler plus Small World, I'm trying to think, I'd probably still just Small World away the Veiler and grab Circular and start with that line, right? So that's why I cut Defensor down to 2 copies, because it ultimately, again, opening it with other cards makes it a little bit awkward, so playing 3 ends up being not as great. But again, still a 1-card combo starter, still good to open by itself. I will say this, though, too. That Mathmech build that I talked about that had 300 wins and had like a 66% win rate, it was on microcoder. In fact, a lot of the Mathmech builds I've been looking at that have higher win rates are on microcoder Cynet conflict. So I'm actually thinking about trying that package out. I've historically not been a huge fan of it, but for this playtest session, I did use the Firewall line, by the way. But you might see another Mathmech video from me this season where I'm actually giving microcoder and Cynet conflict another fair shot, because it's also been a while. And, you know, even if there's an alternate engine for a deck or an alternate build that I'm not the biggest fan of, I still like to come back and try it every now and again, just to make sure, to kind of check in with myself about it and make sure that I still feel the same way, or I guess also to challenge that feeling, right? And be like, hey, maybe this is actually the way to play it. I was just missing something. Always very much a possibility. But yeah, like I said, pretty typical lineup for the Singularity build. I'm on the same extra deck still. Played a couple of Ghost Spells, been very much liking them with all the branded Despia running around. There's still a fair amount of Abyss Shields in the meta, so never a bad idea to have the Ghost Spell. I would like to have room for a couple of Imperms, ideally. That's like one of the main things I feel like I'm missing, but I still like playing 2 Veilers in Mathmech in particular before including any amount of Imperms, mostly for Small World bridges. There's a lot of times where you're going to need to have Veiler and or Nibiru for the Small World bridge, so having another copy is definitely never a bad thing. But alright, that's going to go ahead and do it for the build. I'm going to break it down card by card, and then we'll see some games. We are on 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Droll and Lockbird, 1 Dotscaper, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion, 1 Firewall Guardian, 1 Mathmech Sigma, 1 Mathmech Addition, 1 Mathmech Subtraction, 1 Mathmech Multiplication, 1 Mathmech Diameter, 3 Mathmech Circular, 2 Firewall Defenser, 3 Parallel Exceed, 1 Nibiru, the Primal Being, 2 Cynet Mining, 1 Mathmech Equation, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 3 Small World, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, and then 1 Mathmech Superfactorial. And that'll do it for the main deck. Now for the extra deck, we are on 1 Cyberse Desavewurm, 1 Primathmech Laplacian, 1 Primathmech Alembertain, 1 Mereologic Aggregator, 1 Salamangreat Almiraj, 1 Linguriboh, 1 Link Decoder, 1 Update Jammer, 1 Splash Mage, 1 G Golem Crystal Heart, one Transcode Talker, one Decode Talker Heat Soul, one Access Code Talker, one Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid Neo Tempest Terahertz, and then finally one Firewall Dragon Singularity. There is our list. Let's go ahead and see some games. Okay, our first match is actually going to be a mirror match. They are on Microcarder Cynet Conflict. They're also playing a Gachiri Adagnister, which is a card I've historically been a huge fan of, and I do still like. I just don't quite have the room in the main deck for it. So they're going to lead with Circular, send Sigma. I'm definitely going to fire off this Maxx in response here. Unfortunately for me, they are going to have the Ash Blossom. We still have Ghost Spell, so I am still looking to use that as disruption, but it's going to be kind of hard for me to... Well, it's going to really depend on if they have an extender in hand. So I'm going to use the Ghost Spell against the Sigma here. One of the main reasons I wanted to talk about this game is to talk about this interaction, because I really wanted to stop and think about if there's a better... Here's the thing. I Ghost Spelled the Sigma here as a bit of a hedge, right? If they don't have another Mathmech monster in hand that they can summon, then they can't get to Superfactorial here. Or I guess if they have a level 4 monster, like they could still in theory make an Alembertain, but it would be really hard to set up the graveyard and also search the Superfactorial unless they have a Parallel Exceed here, right? The other alternative to use Ghost Spell on turn 1 would be to use it against the Splash Mage and stop the combo line there. The other alternative is to hold it for Superfactorial. I decided to use it against the Sigma and hedge because I felt like it had the most potential to have the highest impact. Plus, also, to be fair, like, their outs are Addition, Subtraction, I guess any Mathmech monster and Parallel Exceed, which is a decent amount of outs, but they only have 3 cards in hand. It's not like the most unlikely thing for them to not have another out here. So I decided to Ghost Spell here and just see if this would, be enough. They did end up having a Subtraction. I'm trying to think, too, if they'd had a Parallel Exceed, right, they could have linked off the Circular for Linguriboh, special Parallel Exceed, overlay for Alembertain. Alembertain searches the Superfact, and then they can make a Terahertz from there, right? And then they can just use Terahertz to dump Diameter. So yeah, Parallel Exceed also would have gotten them there. I don't know, it's really hard. It's really hard for Ghost Spell by itself to do a lot against the Mathmech line if they have the extender. Oh, they actually had both. Wow. But, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, right? I could still see an argument for not using Ghost Spell there, but the more I think about it, the more confident I feel that was a good spot to use it. So yeah, this is looking like a pretty clear, circular plus extender combo line. Just unsure at this point if they're going to go for Terahertz or Singularity, or rather, I guess, Microcoder or Singularity. At this point, yeah, we see the Terahertz coming down, and when you hit that hits the EMZ, you know they're not going to end up going for the Singularity, because the Singularity has to be in the EMZ. No, it's going to be the Heat Soul, and as well as, of course, the Cynet Conflict that the Microcoder is searching. Circular also linking itself off for the Linguriboh. Kind of no reason not to have that on the inboard if you've got the extra material. Setting 2, and we know that's Superfact plus Cynet Conflict. So at the very least, we are sure that they're not Imperm or Called by or Crossout. Granted, the Heat Soul could still draw some hand traps, and the Terahertz does end up sending the Desavewurm here. So I'm going to activate Circular. They fire off the Cynet Conflict, which is totally fine with me. This was way earlier than I expected to see it, so we'll definitely take those for sure here. This is actually a situation where having Circular plus Defensor is very good. Granted, this is turn 2, right? Last time I was talking about that Defensor plus Circular not being good was during turn 1, so gonna Firewall Defenser, Chainlink 1, Parallel Exceed, Chainlink 2. Also, definitely want to keep this Linguriboh in play to counter the Superfactorial that I know is face down. So I'm going to use the 2 Parallel Exceeds to end up going for the Update Jammer here. Now, they're going to Veiler on the Linguriboh right now, which is actually a very, very smart play. It means that their Superfactorial is live as Disruption again. I'm going to link the Guardian into Link Decoder to establish that, as well as bring back the Firewall Guardian. Now they're going to Superfactorial in response to that, and I think this is a way early Superfactorial. If you see me going for Update Jammer, you know I'm going to make access code, and you can use Superfactorial after the resolution of the access code talker's summon, right? Because you can't chain to access code summon, nor can you chain to the effect, but you can activate Superfactorial when priority is passed to you after the resolutions of access code talker's summon. However, you have to have your toggle flipped to on in order to do that. I think they activated Superfactorial here to try to get it off before I make access code, but I don't think this was necessary. Maybe they don't know about flipping your toggle to on, but this is 100% fine with me in this spot, because Laplacian has no card in hand to take, no back row to take. It's only going to take one of these monsters, and there's no one monster they can snipe with Laplacian here that will stop me from making plays. They're going to take Update Jammer, the Link 2 of course, but that's actually 100% fine. I'm going to go for the Transcode Talker, specifically using the Link Decoder as a material, because now it'll be able to bring itself back. Going to use Transcode to try to bring back Update Jammer. They are predictably going to use the Laplacian to negate it, but that does not destroy it, it only negates. This means I can still make the terahertz and send the multiplication that's still in my deck to the graveyard in order to OTK by attacking Linguriboh. But, no! I misplayed so hard here, and this is so brutally painful. So, 99.9% of the time, it is actually correct to go into battle phase and then use terahertz's effect, because terahertz will negate any monster effect activated by your opponent during the battle phase. So if they try to like Ash Blossom you, for example, then that will get negated. However, this is the 0.1% of the time that it's actually not ideal to go into it, because I totally forgot that my opponent also has terahertz, which means that my monster effects are also going to be negated during the battle phase. That's brutal. That's so brutal here. If not for that very simple misplay, I would have won this duel. It's very sad to see, because of course now my opponent has their own terahertz as well as Heat Soul and a ton of advantage. Now I am going to fire off terahertz and dump multiplication to try to boost it high enough in order to not get battled over by any of their stuff. The aggregator, by the way, is activating on a separate chain link, which is why I did not negate my terahertz ultimately. But unfortunately for me, they actually have their own multiplication in hand, which means they can normal summon it, link it off. That'll proc the multiplication to double their terahertz and then battle over mine. So, yeah, that feels so bad. That feels so bad. It was such... And the funny thing is, too, it was a very simple misplay, but it was actually the correct play in literally any other situation except for when they have a terahertz on their field, too. But... you know, what can you do? I am definitely not above sharing my own misplays, especially if I'm going to talk about my opponent's misplaying and critique their Mathmech play. It's only fair if I kind of, you know, give my own self a fair critiquing as well. But, yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for this game, but we have a lot more to see. Let's go ahead and look at the next duel here. Okay, next opponent is going to be on Labyrinth. I actually don't remember how this duel played out off the top of my head, so I'm kind of eager to see. These duels were actually all played on stream just the other night, actually, at the time of recording this, so I should remember how they went, but... yeah, this was one of the games where I went first, but did not open necessarily the best turn one hand here. Opponent's going to furniture set a regular welcome lab. And then, oh, I remember this game, yeah, because they follow up with a Harpy's Feather Duster, which I thought was really interesting. I've never seen Duster in a lab deck. That's kind of wild to me, but I don't think it's bad necessarily. When I say wild, I mean it was just, it was very unexpected. But to be fair, Crossout and Superfactorial were not doing anything here, so I'm not really very concerned about the actual Duster itself. Crossout, I'm going to call Nibiru because I'm not trying to draw this card, especially that I know I'm against Lab. Nibiru is just 100% useless to me right now, so like I said, very much not trying to draw it. Also, it's a little bit unfortunate that they set up Welcome Lab and not Big Welcome Lab, because big Welcome Lab I actually could have negated with Ghost Spell. But it also makes sense because if they'd said a big Welcome Lab, they would have had to have gotten the lady and then bounce it to hand and then summon her. But I guess they wanted the lovely here more, which makes sense. They can reset the Welcome Lab here. I definitely understand it. I'm very much going to Veiler this lovely. Do not need this, do not need another welcome in my life. Let's not have to deal with that. Lady's going to smack me with the Labyrinth and then pass back over to me. And we peeled a top deck Parallel Exceed, so we do have plays. Which, it might look really lucky to have peeled a card that lets me go into plays, but if you really think about all the cards I could have top decked here that would have led me into plays, right? I mean, Dotscaper would have been plays if not an OTK, but the Firewall Defenser, actually Firewall Guardian. Okay, let me actually be a little bit more specific here. I could have top decked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 out of 34 different cards to have gotten plays there. Because as you can see, I can normal summon the Ghost Spell and just link her off for Almiraj, and that'll allow me to summon the Parallel Exceed. Oh, I didn't count Parallel Exceeds, did I? I think there was actually 17. Let me actually count that again. 1, 2... Actually, Sigma would have been plays too, so... would it have been? Not really. I know I could have summoned it from hand, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18. So yeah, I had 18 top decks, my bad. But, yeah, we're just going to use the triple attack to steal their lovely here. That means that we can just go for a 5300 access code and OTK with that. Because we did not use Circular this turn, that means we can attack with more than one monster, which means we'll have lethal. Even if I had used Circular effect and could only attack with one monster, I still would have taken Lovely, and I would have used her as a link material to summon Transcode Talker, because Transcode Talker is one of our few monsters that only takes effect monsters as a material, and not exactly Cyberse's. So I could have used Lovely as a material to go for Transcode, and that should have given me enough materials to make a Terahertz and then dump off Multiplication if I had used Circular and could only attack with one monster. That is something you have to keep track of. Funnily enough, I find myself having to keep track of when I don't use Circular. More often than not, I just assume I can only attack with one monster because you probably went into Circular for your combo line. Like, again, the vast majority of the time you do. But here we didn't, so we can just swing in with both. Got a couple more duels to see. Let's go into the next one. Alright, it's definitely only right that we get in a game against Super Heavy Samurai here. Given that, again, this is... I don't know, is Super Heavy Samurai even a problem? Like, I feel like I saw it everywhere the first 2 weeks it was out, and then I just stopped seeing it, like, all together after that. That might not be the case at other ranks, because I was playing in Master pretty much by the time Super Heavy Samurai... Well, yeah, a little bit after Super Heavy Samurai came out, but... So, I don't know. I guess let me know in the comments. It could also just be personal variance, but I feel like after the first 2 weeks, I've just not seen this deck hardly at all. Anyway, I'm going to Ash Blossom the Big Benki here to try to hedge and hope they don't have Soul Piercer, which of course they just already do in hand. The thing about Ash Blossom against Super Heavy Sam is that it can be a little bit tricky for the card to actually be good, just because they do so many searches. So if you've got Ash and a Motorbike, you can definitely just Ash the Motorbike and hedge. You should just hedge with Ash in this matchup, I think. And when it comes to Nibiru, we're definitely going to want to use that as soon as the Motorbike gets summoned off of the Excel here. Because if we don't do it then, they'll be able to just go into the Barrel and Defleur. And at that point, they'll be able to negate the Nibiru. So let's definitely nib now. Thankfully, they're not on Stardust, which... Here's the thing, right? Like... Yeah, Super V Samurai can still have a lot of follow-up plays even after the Nibiru, due to their Pendulum Scale as well as all of the previous searches that Soul Piercer had done. But here I don't think they really end up doing much. Oh, no, they're going for Merrymaker. I thought they were going to go for Baguska for some reason. No, Merrymaker into Sargus. And I believe they also get to now, of course, add the Regulus too. I think they could have done more, though. Couldn't they have? I mean, maybe they don't have anything in hand to Pendulum Summon it. That must be it. Because I don't think they even... Yeah, they didn't even end up using their Pendulum Summon here. They did make the Omni Negate, searching that off the Sargus. One other thing to note about the Sargus that is actually going to be very, very important for this matchup in particular, right? So Sargus' effect says... If material is detached from a monster on the field, except during the damage step, you can target one card on the field, either destroy it or return it to the hand. The way that this is worded, it also will activate if I detach and exceeds material as well. So, this hand looks like, wow, this is super good. You can Cynet Mining for the Circular, you have Call By and Crossout. We're just good to go to combo out here. But we can't use Alembertain to combo because we gotta play around the Sargus stuff. Also, we do have to use our battle phase to smack over the Regulus and make sure that isn't gonna Omni-Negate our stuff, right? So, I'm gonna Cynet Mining, pitch the Small World. Opponent has the Ash Blossom, but we have, again, both Called By and Crossout here. So, definitely want to use the Crossout. I really want to save this Call By and stop some follow-up plays, if I can. Not only if they just target a card in the graveyard, mind you, but if they try to activate Soul Piercer, for example, I can Call By their Soul Piercer in the graveyard, and that'll negate all of their searches with it for the whole turn. So, gonna Circular plus Sigma, Circular F to add the Superfactorial, but note that, yeah, I am not overlaying for Alembertain here. Normally you would do that. Of course, normally you would just do that, but here, I am instead going to link for Splash Mage. Now you might be wondering, well, Hex, how are you going to make the Superfactorial live if the Circular is now your only Mathmech monster in the graveyard? Well, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go into Terahertz, and then I'm going to use Terahertz's dump effect on my turn to send a Diameter, and then on the opponent's turn to send another Mathmech monster. Now, I'm going to Call By the Transcode, and they just concede here, which I thought was a pretty early concede. I didn't think this duel was over, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I get to set up Terahertz and use that to set up my Superfactorial, but I don't get to set up Desavewurm, which kind of, funnily enough, to be fair, actually doesn't do anything, because is it when they activate a spell or trap card? Oh, no, it's spell, trap card, or effect. So, Desavewurm can still negate the Pendulum Scale. So that actually does still do something here, but I don't get to send Aggregator either, because, again, I have to use both of my sends to fully set up my graveyard. I guess they saw that line, and that's why they conceded here. But I do think it was a little bit of an early concede. Either way, it was very satisfying. It was very satisfying to have dodged the Sargus disruption effect there like that. Anyway, I've got one more game to show you, so let's go ahead and see it. And our final duel is going to be another game against Super Heavy Samurai, but this one was teching a branded engine, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like one Albaz, one Branded Fusion, one Vert's Anaconda in the extra deck was the kind of lineup there. So anyway, we're going second. They're going to start with the Soul Piercer, which we definitely, of course, do not want to see, well, ideally ever, but especially with a hand like this, right? Soul Piercer is going to grab Motorbike. Scarecrow F will pitch the DD Crow for the Soul Piercer. Again, if I've only got one single use, like, disruption, like the Ghost Spell, I'm just going to use it now and kind of hedge a little bit against the Scarecrow. But they have the Wakao. I mean, they already had Motorbike in hand, too, so we kind of knew they had everything here. And we're just going to have to play through it, unfortunately, at this point. Soul Gaia Booster is going to equip to that Scarecrow and then summon itself. So you get another Soul Piercer here. Soul Piercer F will equip to the Wakao before they sink. I mean, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward, honestly. If I can find my mouse cursor, there it is. Because it's going to be just a full Super Heavy Samurai combo at this point. Alright, there's the Baron de Fleur, Soul Peacemaker on the Scarecrow, summoning the Scales for Soul Piercer. Link for... Do they do the box line? No, they're just going straight for the Genius. Alright, they get to pen to summon the 2, which will let them add the Regulus off the Genius. We've all seen this, right? That's why I'm fast forwarding here, is we're all pretty familiar with this line, I'm sure, by this point. Okay, there's Sprite Elf, sinking for, I believe, yeah, Saratobi here. Elf brings back Bike, summon Soul Horns. Oh, and this is how they're going to go for Nat Beast. Yep. Thankfully, we don't need this Small World, so the Nat Beast and Saratopia are both actually total non-factors. Second Parallel Exceed is literally like the worst possible draw I could have gotten, I think, but except maybe for a spell card. But we'll definitely still use it here. Oh, let's take this off fast forward. So anyway, yeah, Regulus is going to negate the Parallel Exceed, and things are looking pretty dire here, right? Actually, they do look dire, but they're not quite as bad as it might seem. I'm really just one Omni Negate away from being able to combo through this board, because again, Nat Beast, I don't need Small World here, so Nat Beast doesn't actually do anything, and Saratobi also doesn't do anything because I don't need any spell or trap cards. So I'm going to normal summon Diameter, and I was very, very shocked that Diameter resolved, by the way. I 100% expected... Here was what I was thinking, actually, during the game itself. When I normal summon Diameter, my thoughts were, alright, I'm just going to normal summon this Diameter, they're going to negate and destroy with the Barrel and Diffler, and then I'll concede at that point. But I normal summoned it, and they didn't negate it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, let me just keep going then. Alembertain effect for Circular, and then they let that go through. And honestly, as soon as Circular got added, I kind of knew I was good. Like, I wasn't sure that I was going to win this turn, but I did know that I was going to be able to have plays, if nothing else. So, one thing I've often said on the channel is to, like, make your opponent play it out. Or, I think the phrase I've actually used before is, like, give your opponent a chance to misplay, right? And that's actually exactly what happened here. I was ready to just give up because I was so sure that you would barrel on the Diameter normal summon. Because, like, why wouldn't you? But they didn't. So, now as we move to battle phase, they can't barrel because otherwise the Terahertz would negate it. Again, they just kind of let it happen. They did not end up using that Omni Negate even once. So, yeah, I kind of want to just, you know, show this game as a further PSA for what I've always said, which is play the game out. Especially if, you know, you think like, oh, well, after this one action, I'll just auto-lose and end up surrendering after that point anyway. You might as well do that action because your opponent could surprise you like mine did here. And not make the game as free of a win as you might think it is. Yeah, it's like I've said multiple times now, and like I've said multiple times before on the channel, especially if you're so close to the end of the game already, just play it out. Give your opponent an opportunity to misplay. You'll never know, they might just take it. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this game and this video. Thank you all for watching these duels. Yeah, let's just go ahead and move to our outro now. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. That means a lot to me. It's also a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much in that way as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways, like the very special patrons that I am thanking here, you can do so by checking out some of the links in the description. One of those goes to the Patreon, where you can join these fine folk and support the channel that way. I do post daily content over on Patreon, so you do get something for supporting there. And if you're interested, I also have a coaching tier option as well. Details again will be on Patreon in the link below. Also in the description linked below is my Twitch page where I stream a few times a week. You can go ahead and check that out, follow or subscribe over there if you ever want to catch me live. You'll also find my second YouTube channel if you feel like subscribing over there to watch some of the Twitch VODs as well as some additional non-Yu-Gi-Oh related content that I make over there. Again, any of those links you want to check out is all a great way of supporting. But again, even if you don't do that, just watching was also a fantastic way to support. And once again, I have to thank you so very much. But in any case, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, and I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.